And good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners. It's September 27th. Extra agendas are on the back table. I'd like to please join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All commissioners are present. And first up, I'm looking for approval of minutes from September 20th.
So move. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Oregon 99W Orr's Corner update, Cloud Corner Road, construction detour. That's a mouthful. So we have Kumar Retzme and Andrew Wilkes with us. Where's yours?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners and Polk County for meeting with us today. My name's Kumar Retzme. I'm the project manager. I've got Andrew Wilkes, who's our work zone traffic coordinator, Anna Hansen, and our Region 2 Strategic Communications Director on Zoom. So the purpose of today's presentation is to run the Board of Commissioners through a road closure and also a detour. So we'll just run through some of the slides here. So firstly, I'd just like to apologize for not bringing this to the county's attention earlier. We overlooked this during a handover last year where there was a change of personnel between myself and our traffic coordinator. So as soon as we noticed this, we wanted to bring this to your attention as soon as possible. And so there's two things which we're seeking approval today as part of our presentation, and that is for a road closure and a detour. And the reason that these are required is the road closure at Cloud Corner east of OR 99. This is needed so we can build the roundabout essentially while the traffic remains on OR 99 unaffected, so we can keep that traffic flowing. And then the 12 to 14 months, that'll be a 12 to 14 months detour, road closure, and then the detour, which will be a 4-week period. That's necessary to build, but I guess what you would say is tie the roundabout back into OR 99. So if you can imagine 3/4 of the roundabout is being built off to the side, and then that detour is necessary to tie it back in. And we'll show you a little bit more as we go through the presentation. Oops. Okay. So today's presentation will probably take around 15 minutes. So we're going to talk a little bit about the project's purpose, why we're doing it, the improvement at Orr's Corner and Cloud Corner, and then we'll go into the detour overview, and then also our public engagement strategy to talk about or to convey that message to the public for the detour and the road closure. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? So OR 99, as you're probably very familiar, runs north-south along through the major towns of Monmouth and Rickreall. It's right in the eastern portion of Polk County. It's a regional route with a speed of around 55 miles an hour. There's a bike path, a ped bike path, which is to the west of OR 99 that originates in Monmouth and closes, or I guess finishes at Orr's Corner Road. We'll be making improvements to Cloud Corner Road and OR 99 and Orr's Corner Road 99. These are both, one's a 3-legged intersection and one's a 4-leg intersection. Traffic on this route is about 15,000 vehicles AADT, which is annual average daily traffic, with about a 6% truck volume. Orr's Corner Road is about 1,500 AADT, and Cloud Corner Road is 5,500 AADT. The reason that we're doing these improvements at these two locations is because it's been a safety, a safety issue at this location. And what I mean by safety is that it's been a top SPIS site, top 5% SPIS site, which is our Safety Improvement Index system. Essentially, it's how we classify roads of high concerns. And essentially, the thing that's driving it into that 5% region is because there's had lots of fatal crashes, and not only the crashes, but also the severity of those crashes, so being fatal accidents as well, pushes that right up to the top. This project will aim to improve the safety for all users of the road. Some of the interim safety improvements that we've made at Plough Corner and OR 99 include a southbound right turn lane, overhead flashing beacons, widening the road on all four corners, and then also a through warning vehicle system, so letting people know on OR 99 that there are vehicles coming or stopping at Plough Corner Road. Any questions?
Do you have a sense of how the safety outcomes changed during those after the interim safety improvements were made?
I don't have that answer. Anna, do you have a sense of that?
Sorry. Real quick question for maybe a few more clarification. When were those safety improvements made? And then initially, and then we can run that information down and get back to you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the information on when those were done, but yeah, I can definitely find that out and get back to you. Okay, we're going to run through. So this is the improvements. So the first improvement, what you're seeing is at Orrs Corner Road. Essentially, what we were originally planning to do at this location was to have a traffic separator, but after some community feedback and then also some input from the county, we've changed that to a dedicated left turn pocket. So basically, if you're traveling northbound on 99 and you want to make a left turn into Orrs Corner Road, you'll have a protected spot to make that left turn and not have, I guess, the risk of someone running into the back of you. Additionally, we're also widening the corners to make it safer for vehicles to make that turn, also truck vehicles. And we're pushing out the bike ped paths, so there's a shorter distance for pedestrians and cyclists to cross. If we were to cross them where that widened section is, they'd have a lot of area to cover. So that's the improvements that we're going to be doing at Orrs Corner Road. Next, we have the improvements at Plough Corner Road. And as you can see on the diagram up on the screen here, we will be moving or building the roundabout to the east of 99. And the reason that we moved it or had it in that location, there's a couple of different things. One, there's an unnamed tributary which runs along, I guess, runs north-south of 99. And to build it in its existing alignment, one would probably have a lot of fish passage requirements, which is quite a lot of expense. But additionally, there was some archaeological sites in that location. And again, if we moved it to the west of its current location, we'd have similar issues. But primarily the reason that we're moving it away from 99 is so we can build the roundabout without creating a lot of traffic disruption. An additional benefit of having it offside is improving worker safety, but also safety for the users of 99. If we were to build it on its alignment, there'd be multiple road closures and queuing for a long period of time. So currently the roundabout, as shown there, it's going to take 12 to 14 months to build. We're starting construction in June, or for the both improvements, we're going to be starting in June of 2023 and going to November of 2024. Okay. So this will probably explain, this is the first road closure, which I wanted to explain a bit in detail. So Cloud Corner Road East, again, what I reiterated was that this will be closed for approximately 12 to 14 months. And the reason that we need this detour is in order to build the roundabout without creating a lot of disruption on OR 99. The out of direction travel for the properties to the east of that road closure will range from 3 to 8 minutes. So if you're traveling, say, south to Monmouth, you'll be taking a mixture of, say, Rogers Road and OR 51. If you're going north or west to, say, Dallas, you'll be going via Morrows Road back around on Rickreall Road. And again, we anticipate that this road closure will be there for 12 to 14 months. And we expect the range is because of the next part, which is due to the detour. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail on the next slide. So this is, as I said, probably the more major component of this presentation. So this detour is required to tie in the roundabout back to OR 99. It's kind of a critical portion of the project because when trucks and vehicles use the roundabout or they're slowing on OR 99 to approach the roundabout, these approaches are often the points or the parts of the road which have the greatest stress. So we actually need to build this probably, if not stronger than part of the roundabout. So what it is that while we're able to facilitate one direction of travel, which would be the northbound, the southbound direction of travel, we tried to fit it in to see if we could do the work, seeing how we could avoid the detour altogether. But unfortunately, there's just not enough width to allow both north and southbound traffic on OR 99 at the same time. The other option we looked at was flagging, using a pilot car, so essentially causing stopping and then starting. But due to the traffic volume on 99, it was just not an acceptable method of traffic control at that location. And so what we've proposed here is to detour traffic on OR 99 via Oars Corner Road, then onto Riddell through the Cloud Corner Road intersection and down on Hoffman Road and then back on 99. The reason that we've chosen southbound to take this detour is because it eliminates traffic crossing over northbound moving traffic. So, and the short-term detour, as we've been discussing with Commissioner Mordhorst and Todd Whitaker, we want to time this detour during summer. So roughly a period of between, I think it was mid-June when school ends at WOU and also any type of school traffic. And then between that and the end of August. So approximately a 6-week period between that frame one, or maybe it's 10 weeks. So that's the reason why the previous slide you saw a period of 12 to 14 months, because we would not when we would open that road, it would open after this road. And the timing required for the detour is 4 weeks. We think that we could probably do it in 3, but we're just giving ourselves a week of breathing room in case of any type of unforeseen issues. So 1 week for excavation, 1 week for aggregate, and 1 week to place the asphalt.
And Kumar, I assume that northbound traffic on Riddle Road will be allowed to continue during the detour period, or is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
So I'm confused now because your document shows a 10-week period. So you're going to fit 4 weeks in somewhere in that 10 weeks, which means what? How are you going to help people plan like freight traffic and ag traffic? How are we going to plan for that? If you're saying maybe 3, maybe 4, probably longer, somewhere in that 10-week time slot, right? So how is anyone going to plan for that? If they've got to run their business and they're going to get slowed down, and there will be problems in this detour and extra wide traffic that's not normally on that road. So how does somebody plan? What should they expect? Because you're picking something here, but we don't really know when, but you're blocking out a 10-week space.
Well, I guess what I would respond to that is, well, this is the period in which we're aiming to. As we move through construction, we'll have outreach targeted at different times to then, I guess, give a more firmer date as to when we would then close the road. We're also planning, we've got public outreach this year in this November and then in the following November before the actual detour. But I think as we move through construction, we'll have a clearer time to be able to give people more advance notice as to when that 4-week detour period would be.
When do you expect to have that information ready to communicate to the public? Do you expect when in the construction phase?
I can't give an answer right now without speaking to my construction person, but I can definitely take that question away and then get back to you with an answer.
We'll probably know a month in advance before we actually do that.
I think we should know several months in advance of how things are moving and where the contract plans to have that 4-week period. So I don't think we'll be giving 1 to 2 weeks. I think it would be several weeks, or at least several months in advance to be able to give the traveling public, freight community, farming, the farmers plenty of chance to then plan alternate routes.
And some just simply won't have alternate routes.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if alternate route means Highway 51, I know of at least 2 large farm operations that move all their harvest equipment down 99W in this stretch that come from out of county and are traveling through the county. They're not going to be able to use 51. They can't go through Independence now. And so Riddle Road will be their route. And we have a narrow bridge. There's going to be a lot of challenges with overwit, ag equipment and some industrial stuff that comes through that, uses that 99 as a regular route. So this timing is very critical. And of course, communicating to those companies is very critical. And we're going to have a bunch of them that are going to fall through the cracks. As we work on this detour plan, I want to understand how you plan to use reader boards and other things to update people, regular traveling folks. I think that'll be critical. Especially the farm operations, if they're used to using 99W, if they can see updated details on a reader board at both ends, I think that'll help.
Yep.
Maybe that's in your plan here coming along, but I think that's going to be one of the most essential things so that, again, I used to move large harvest equipment crews through that highway. And if I had to use Riddle Road, that meant that especially if it was wheat harvesting equipment, I'd almost essentially have to block the road, especially at that bridge on Riddle Road, because the headers on these combines are too big to be able to get through there and have traffic still move through it. So, those folks have to be able to plan for how they're going to move their equipment and how they're going to manage their needs along with a really heavy traffic load on Riddle Road. So those are some of my concerns as we go through this, that we have a way to communicate and give them as much advance warning as possible so that they can think through how they're going to manage their needs.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those concerns, and I'm not from this area, so I can only seek to try and understand different people and different needs of the community, and we want to work with the county to make sure that all people can be accommodated for during this detour. So I'm going to hand it off to Andrew, and he's going to take us through the specifics of each of the intersections through the detour route.
Okay, thanks, Kumar. As you mentioned already, I'm Andrew Wilkes. I'm doing the work zone traffic design for this project. So I'll kind of walk you through what we're proposing for the detour for southbound traffic. So as you can see on the screen, we will put up barricades, and there will be plenty of advanced signing. It's not necessarily shown on the slide, but there will be signing message boards in advance of the actual closure. So it should be very obvious that you're gonna have to take a right on Orr's Corner. So we will close southbound traffic only at Orr's Corner. That's the plan. Once traffic is on Orr's Corner, it's just a short stint down to Riddle Road. There will be more signs letting people know you're gonna have to take a left on Riddle. They'll take a left on Riddle, and that's about it for that. Can you go to the next slide? So one kind of mitigation that we're planning for Orr's Corner itself is relatively low volume compared to the volume of southbound 99 traffic. But given that there will be such a high volume turning left there, we want to put something like a variable message board for eastbound traffic on Orr's Corner, just letting them know to expect way more people turning. Hopefully avoid any conflicts there. And that's about it for that intersection. Should be relatively straightforward. The next intersection, which is probably the biggest concern for the whole detour, is Riddle and Polk Corner. So the existing configuration today are stop signs on Riddle, and it's a through movement on Polk Corner. But what we're going to need to do to build the roundabout, regardless, is close plow on the east leg temporarily. And this would actually facilitate the detour itself pretty well, because we're going to be sending the volume of southbound 99W traffic on Riddle Road. So there's different potential options on how we can actually accomplish this and keep traffic moving. So we looked at 3 different options at that intersection. One would be, since we're going to be turning, no matter what, we're turning this into a temporary T intersection. One would be adding a stop sign on Plow Corner where there isn't one currently, but you're at a T anyway, so that's a legal stop no matter what we do. So we'll add a stop sign there. The other option, one thing that we looked at was, could we do a temporary signal, portable signal? And another option is, can we do a temporary roundabout? We're doing a roundabout project. Can we do a temporary one? So I can do a little quick overview of each option, but what we've essentially come down to as our preference is that we think a stop sign on Cloud Corner is going to be the most straightforward, easiest, lowest cost, most effective for a short-term solution. Some things to note about temporary signals, for example. We were hoping that if we were to go that route, we'd be able to use the portable trailers, which are much more affordable. They can be brought in on the back of a truck. They can be moved around. But I consulted with our signal operations engineer, and she informed me that given the volume of southbound traffic that we'd be putting on Riddle Road, that's basically not an option. We would need to have communication with the signals coming back to our office, just given the volume. So that would, if we chose to go down the route of temporary signal, that means we have to actually build a temporary signal with poles in the ground and the whole thing, which takes way more time and it's higher cost. We looked at a temporary roundabout too as kind of an innovative potential solution. In theory, we could stripe one, but unfortunately, given we only have so much pavement width there at that intersection, and still accommodating trucks turning. It could only be striped. There couldn't be anything physical there separating it, which essentially negates all the benefits of a roundabout. The roundabout needs to be a physical feature to force people to slow down and actually go around and yield to other drivers. So we're pretty concerned that if we tried something like that, people would get confused, they'd start running over the circle, and it would potentially be more of a hazard than just a regular stop sign.
Have there been discussions about a permanent roundabout at that intersection? Or not really?
For our project, no. Not to say that it might not be a good idea to, for the county to have a roundabout there. But yeah, that's kind of outside of the scope
Yeah,
of what
for
we're
sure.
looking at, basically. So what we've decided to recommend here at this location, to add a temporary stop sign for plow, going to be in a T configuration. Being in a T configuration, it's pretty simple to understand. If you're following the rules of the road, the through movement can flow, and the people coming up to the T will have to yield right of way to the through movement, which makes sense when we're detouring because we're going to have much higher volume of highway traffic on Riddle going southbound. So another nice thing about doing it this way is that when we're done with the detour, we're still going to need to keep that leg closed for a while to actually tie in plow to the new roundabout, similar to how we're kind of tying into our highway. But at that point, we can add back, so you can see the second from the right. When the detour is done, we can add back the stop signs on Riddle Road, which would serve, and that would be, I don't have the exact time that that's going to take to construct, but it's easily, another month or possibly more to get that whole thing tied in. So we're going to have a pretty good transition time where we can have that three-way stop, which will hopefully retrain drivers, especially on Riddle, because we've heard that there are concerns about people not stopping there. We can kind of transition them back to somewhat of the way it used to be. And then when we're actually done with the roundabout and we open Plow Corner, we take everything back out and we essentially leave it as we found it. And there are some additional countermeasures we can add, making sure that we can use some of our message boards on Riddle Road, letting people know there's a change ahead, stop ahead, stuff like that, flashing at you. And we can also look at other options too about whether, we need to increase the size of the stop sign, things like that. Hopefully help with that safety issue.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about internally was to mitigate the blow through traffic accidents was to maybe install oversized stop signs to make it really aware that, there is a stop coming up. I drove it this morning. I noticed that, you have the transverse indicators to let people know that there's a stop sign. But I think when I was coming up, and it's the first time that I've driven the intersection, the stop signs are kind of small, and I can imagine, I'm not sure when accidents happen, if it's at nighttime, but maybe increasing the size of the stop signs might help or alleviate that concern. I guess we're open to ideas and suggestions where, we're practical and we're feasible. Any questions about this intersection?
Oh, 1,000 of them. Absolutely.
Start in the middle.
I don't want to stop you from your presentation. I can come back.
All right.
Okay. So the next location would be a left turn for southbound traffic back onto Hoffman Road. One concern that we heard was that there is quite a bit of traffic right now using Hoffman to get on Riddle for university traffic. So we are attempting to write into our specifications the timing, and that's where the June to August timeframe came in. And that's just to accommodate that concern. Similar to what I proposed on Orr's Corner, we can also add a message sign for northbound traffic on Riddle to let them know that there's going to be a lot of people turning in front of them. And same thing as all the other intersections, there will be several signs in advance of the turn to let people know where they need to go. The next one. And then tying back into 99W, this is an existing signalized intersection. So I did consult with our signals group and they said, yeah, no problem if we need to adjust timing to account for the change in movement. Also, there's not going to be any through traffic on 99W, so rights on red will be extremely easy for southbound traffic. And that pretty much concludes the actual detour itself.
So just to retouch on our public engagement strategy, we have Region 2 construction online open houses every November. This project will be over 2 construction seasons starting in June of next year and moving to November of 2024. So we have the opportunity to reach out to the public not once but twice, but we can also do targeted specified outreach to affected residents. Also, we have a .gov mailing list with trucking community to let people know that when this detour is in place, they can take alternate routes, say I-5 or 51, which might be an option for some of these people who don't necessarily want to take Riddle Road. So, yep, we've also got our webpage and a number of items next door, which we find really effective in getting the message out to the general public. Because it will be like a 4-week detour. Generally, people will find a way or find their own way, but that's not to say that we're going to leave them in the lurch. We want to make sure that it's out there. But people tend to make pretty educated decisions when they know that there's something ahead of time. So that's my details there. If you want to take down my number, feel free to send me lots of emails and questions. And that brings us towards the end of the presentation. So I can open the floor up for any further questions.
Start us off.
Okay, so what would be the solution for a detour if you didn't have Riddle Road, which is an anomaly actually in most of your projects to have something like this? So how would you plan this construction work without Riddle Road?
I think realistically,
Because that's how you have to do it everywhere else generally.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not to say that we don't have alternate routes, but they're not the greatest. So realistically, if we can't make the Riddle Road detour work, I think that's going to push us to a full highway closure. So one of the nice things is we only really need to detour one direction of traffic, which is less disruptive overall for the highway, right? And kind of sort of for some of the freight. So you can still get some of your equipment, maybe one direction, maybe it's more difficult going southbound. We would probably be looking at, it's not ideal, but we'd probably be looking at detouring all 99 traffic to 51 perhaps, and maybe even I-5, depending, maybe for freight, I-5. Because 51 goes right through downtown Monmouth.
Independence. Well, and Monmouth eventually, yes.
Yeah,
It's pretty tight.
it's pretty tight, and there's, pedestrian crossings, and there's, it's not ideal. So anyway, I think that's why we're here today.
No, I'm not suggesting that Riddle Road isn't an option, but I want to make certain for the context of the conversation that you define what you would normally do if you didn't have this kind of an option, and you have, I simply stated, just close the road.
Yeah, so what I was initially hoping was that we could do it with night closures, like flagging, for example. But as soon as I dug more into the roadway design and looking at our traffic volumes, essentially, we're pretty well stuck. So the reason we need to detour, as Kumar already mentioned, but we have to excavate our pavement and go all the way down to base rock and potentially subgrade stabilization. So if we were just going in and paving over the top, we could do a lot of that at night and just get it done and move traffic over. There's a high enough volume of traffic on 99W that once we hit morning, like 7 a.m., the queues are just insane. Like, it just wouldn't go, it wouldn't work. Some people would start self-detouring. I mean, dude, if we don't put up, if we leave these county roads open, which we basically have to, and we try to close our highway off, or we cause queuing that bad, people are just gonna drive over there themselves. I think we have to expect that. But so initially, that's what I was hoping we can do, because as much as possible, we do a lot of night work on our highways. But once we start digging out our asphalt, and we have about a 40-foot road, and we kind of have to do it half of a chunk at a time. That's why we can maintain that northbound lane, because we have the 20 feet. 20 feet, it's fine for one lane, not nearly enough for 2 actual lanes. So, and the fact that we essentially can't flag, we can flag at night, and we will be doing that on this project for other parts of the work, including at Orr's Corner. We'll be flagging there too at night. Honestly, I wish we were able to do it, but given the design and the fact that we have to rebuild our approaches, that goes from, overnight shift type work to, it takes weeks to dig it all out and put it back.
Part of the reason it takes a little bit longer than, say, just paving is there's certain types of checks that they need to do throughout the work to make sure it's done to specification, and making sure that they get survey level checks at different points, so that we're actually getting a quality product that we're not going to have that placed in a couple of years' time. So it's a little bit of long-term thinking for, unfortunately a bit of short-term pain. Hopefully it means we'll be out there less in the future.
So what's, I think about emergency services, and I focus on that quite a bit in my job here. So there's going to need to be, especially for the potential for traffic crashes. I'd say there's even a high likelihood of traffic crashes during the detour of EMS being able to get to collisions on Riddle Road, and may need to use plow from 99W. I mean, if they don't have any way to be able to get through traffic, if it's because it will be blocked up, the potential for that. Will they be able to access both east and west Plow Corner Road, even during the construction period or the detour period?
For the southbound detour that we were just talking about, I'd say yes, because the contractor shouldn't be working on that chunk yet. But the longer closure on the east side of our highway, that whole thing's going to be under construction. So if something happens on Alcorn, like on the east side, they would have to access it from.
Yeah, it's a long haul. So that's an important note, and you need to actually make certain that you're communicating with emergency services people now about what that closure looks like, so that they can start planning their routes, especially for fire, because there will be some potential that they don't get to a house fire at all. But for ambulance services, I think that'll be important for Rogers Road. We have a fair number of crashes that do happen on that road. That's, I think, an important element, but I would beg you to make certain that you give EMS on the Riddle Road approach all access that they can get, even though you're closing it to the public on Cloud Corner West. I think it's important that you maintain, an opportunity for fire and EMS to be able to get through there. So they don't have to go all the way to one end or the other to get to something that might be happening actually at Cloud and Riddle, because that potential is still there. That then takes me to the challenges for all three intersections. Orr's Corner probably not as dramatic because it has a bigger radius maybe, but the other two intersections don't have enough radius for tractor trailer traffic and making turns. And, I see them all the time. They have to swing out, if they're going out of Dallas, which happens a lot here, they use that route. And if they're going to turn on Riddle Road, they have to swing across the other lane in order to make that turn in some cases. So is there plans, and it doesn't look like it, but is there plans to accommodate with Public Works here, modifications to the radius so that we can accommodate the tractor trailer traffic that's being routed? I think of Hoffman Road especially. They're going to make a left turn off of Hoffman Road. They're cutting across a lane that's sitting at the stop bar, or traffic sitting at a stop bar. There's not enough room there for a flow of southbound traffic to be making that left-hand turn.
For a tractor trailer
Yeah.
turning left from Riddle on.
Yeah, that's because that's the direction they're going to go. They're not going to go through Monmouth.
We can take a closer look and do an actual, I can reach out to our roadway designer and have him do the turning template there.
Your detour is going to plug up real quick and often at Hoffman Road, just because of that left turn movement. And I can envision that some, driver that's not familiar with the area gets tangled up with people that will be right up over that stop bar, anxious to get out of there, anxious to make their turn. We have that challenge with it today. And so I can see a flow challenge at that intersection for sure, in this detour. And so I think it's appropriate that we talk about, well, what do we need to do to enhance those intersections? And I know it's a temporary problem, but it's going to be a very miserable temporary problem if every day we are impacting emergency services and traffic with impairments that are going to happen there. It will happen. It's just a matter of what day it's going to happen during the week. Yeah.
So at the intersection, is there a chance we put a stop sign for northbound traffic on Hoffman? Or not on Hoffman, but on Riddle northbound at the Hoffman Riddle intersection? Because you have the nice thing is you've listened to us and we've talked about college traffic and all that stuff. So if we can hit the sweet spot in the summer when we don't have college in full, but at the same time, with all the traffic getting southbound, if we can put a stop sign on the northbound right there to make those cars stop and hesitate, that might help alleviate some of those trucks and give them a little better chance for that turn. But it is going to be tight there. If a car is pulled up to that line, it could be a challenge.
Well, we could, when we do the turning path template, we could maybe look at relocating that stop line further back. We are working with Todd to do a traffic analysis at that intersection to better figure out, what type of gaps people are going to have to make that left turn going, say, southbound from Hoffman down onto Riddle. But I think they're good suggestions, and we can go back and look at them a little bit more in detail.
I'd like to put in, these guys have been amazing to work with on this whole project since we started 3 years ago. We really got back into it, and they have really listened. But from Todd, we get in the back room, and Austin, myself, they've used a lot of our suggestions and been very open and great to work with. So working through these, it doesn't concern me a whole lot. There'll be challenges we're facing, but we can find answers, I'm sure.
I appreciate the teamwork as well and share some of Commissioner Pope's concerns, especially with EMS, so that communication strategy is going to be critical so they're prepared. And I just want to make another mention that I support this roundabout project overall. I know that's not the decision coming before us today, but I want to say something to your comment, Andrew, about scope of project. Drivers don't care about what's a state project, what's a county project. The roundabout will have effects on traffic flow on Clow and other areas. I'd like to understand that a little bit better and be open to some collaboration there. If there are modifications we can make those other intersections from a county level, just to keep that conversation open. Appreciate it.
The county has some funding at the intersection of Dell and Clow to do some safety improvements at that intersection. I think we're currently speaking with our arts liaison, which is our all roads traffic safety program, to see if maybe we can fast track some of that funding ahead of our detour to maybe make improvements at that intersection for that. But that was just brought ahead, or I guess brought up to the table since we've talked about this potential detours. We can definitely follow up and see where that leads or where that lands.
I appreciate that.
Well, I'll just stay for the record. I appreciate the collaboration. I think that's our job. However, I would also tell you that there's some language challenges here in your presentation for me. And again, back to the Clow-Riddle intersection detail, the stop sign configuration is preferred, starting with low cost, isn't going to cut it if you're prying people out of mangled cars in that intersection. So the low cost solution isn't going to be one I'm going to be able to stand with you on. I don't care about the cost. I do care about lives. And then secondarily, I do care about the inconvenience to people with this project, albeit we're stating 4 weeks. The potential is there for it to be more than that. It always is. So I'm not naive in that regard. I am very concerned as well about the queue that's going to get built with your plan in this intersection. The queue is going to get built on Cloud Corner Road. There's a lot of traffic on that road. And how are they going to get in? How are they going to get in? I mean, are we expecting that they're just going to sit and wait until somebody that's traveling 60 miles an hour on Riddle Road is going to be accommodating? How are they going to get in the intersection? So our crash rate's going to go up during this detour. It's just going to happen. And I mean, it's inevitable. And so that's my concern as we do this. This taking stop signs off and allowing traffic to go through, of course, secondarily to me is also a long-term problem, because we're going to have somebody that doesn't use the road every day that sees this, and you guys have studied this. I know you know this. They're going to come back a couple of months later and they're going to think that there's no stop signs at that intersection. Now, hopefully it's not a foggy day and not a dark, miserable night, and they're going to see all the warnings because that's what they need to. But we've had serious crashes and death at that intersection with people local that know that there's stop signs there and they still blow through it. So those are, of course, challenges that I have. But again, the queuing, the potential traffic backup on Cloud Corner Road is something that's going to be a challenge. And I'm curious about how, is that going to be our problem? Is that what we have to come to face with? What's our partnership there? How are we going to manage that?
We have
Potentially, its potential is pretty high.
I might. Yeah, so we'll have flaggers on the project, and it's hard to say without actually being out there and observing what you're talking about. Like, do we want to just have that part of the plan where on certain peak hours we add flaggers, to kind of serve as that, we don't quite need a full temporary signal, but we need a little bit of extra control of traffic during the peak hour, because the peak hour it's quite a bit higher than other times of the day, right? So there's the potential that we do something like that where we add flaggers, just say from 3 to 6 p.m., something like that. And there's also the potential, I don't know that we can account for this officially, but we do have Orr's Corner as well coming out of Dallas. I think if I was using Cloud Corner, especially if I don't know how many people use Cloud to take a left on 99 to go north, but in this case, I think I would learn pretty quick. I'm going to go use Orr's instead. because then you don't have to sit there and try to turn left. Now, people wanting to approach the stop sign and turn right, they'll still be looking for gaps, like you said, for sure, but at least it's just that one conflict. And I will also add, just in general to some of the concerns that you pointed out, we're not necessarily recommending a stop sign just for the cost. Like that's a benefit of it being lower cost, but we're concerned about safety too, for sure. I mean, if we needed a signal here, that's what we would do. But I think what we're kind of saying is like this intersection, while it is a different configuration than what people are used to, this intersection still has theoretically less conflict than Plow and 99W, because 99W has traffic going both ways.
You're mixing apples and oranges here, man. You can't talk about traffic flow at an intersection in its current ADT and then impact it with, 3 times that amount and say that they're similar or that they have similar conflicts as what they do today.
Yeah,
It will be substantially different.
right. I'm just pointing out that the existing intersection with our highway is stop controlled. And it's functioning today.
Yeah. And again, I spent 27 years in the fire service. I see what these conflicts look like on the ground. It just takes one. And then all of us have to explain to people why we let it happen. And so I'm trying to do all I can to mitigate that challenge, make sure that we do everything we can for it not to happen. There will be high-speed traffic going through that intersection that's not happening today. And there will be challenges with that, and there'll be frustrations with people trying to get in and out. All 3 intersections are a problem. Again, I've pointed out my concerns for Hoffman Road. It will happen. If we don't manage, and again, if we were building that road or those intersections for this kind of traffic, this volume, we would never let them stand the way they are. So to use them as a short-term bypass without considering those challenges, I think is probably a little irresponsible. So I know that you're saying it's short-term. I'm saying it doesn't matter that it's only 4 weeks. The potential is still there, that we're going to have impacts to people. And I mean, the businesses, of course, are also an issue for me, but I don't want people getting hurt through this thing. So I want to make certain that we're talking about all the things that we need to talk about and what are the mitigations that we should plan together to make certain that we help avoid all those things. And if there are things that are a plus for long-term interests at those intersections, I think that's appropriate as well. I think the people listening to this or watching this meeting right now would say, yeah, that's exactly what you should be doing. So don't put me at risk today for your project, if you can avoid that. So that's my question is, how can we avoid that? And then finally, I would also like to suggest that you change your language about impacts to Western Oregon. Again, there are people that live here and work here that use these roads every day. And I find that challenging. Don't talk about the challenges to Western Oregon students because they really don't need that road. They've got other alternatives that are straight down 99W that they can use. So using that as a reason for this window is not helpful. I get that we're in construction season during that period, and I think that you should be fair and honest with the current road users and the folks that live here about we have to build during that time. This is our construction season. Here's the reasons why it's that date based on that. So let's just be fair with everybody about the impacts to them and the dates accordingly. That's the right time clearly to do it. Let's be honest about that.
I just want to, we talked about midsummer and you guys did a great job with your window putting this alternative route in the detour. But I just hope we can stress to the contractor that we need to get this done before harvest season starts. When you have 6 combines going back to back down that and they're changing fields, going through that 21-foot wide bridge on Riddle Road is going to be really tight with a 20-foot header. And then turning left at Hoffman is going to be another challenge, which Greg just pointed out to me. So hopefully we can get that done in the summer before harvest starts. And I think we can. I'm one of the optimists, but
Harvest starts June 20th.
June 20th.
Yeah. And it goes through September.
I think we're open to doing the detour earlier. Again, that probably has some impacts to students and other users. It's really, we would like to work best with you to try and find optimal time to do that in. This was just based, whether this, the window that we suggest was based on our conversation with the commissioner and public works. But if there's a more opportune time to do the detour, we're open to that feedback.
And that's exactly what we've experienced this whole project. So what we're doing, we're just today, we're just pointing out the unknowns that maybe were oversight that we hadn't recognized prior. And we appreciate you coming over today and catching us up on this. So, yeah, thank you both very much. Great presentation. And
May I ask what the next steps, I guess, to seeking approval are?
well, I think we're gonna have to address a few more things on the detour. Are you guys comfortable with it as presented, knowing that
No.
we're gonna make changes? Okay. So I have to address a couple of these questions he brought up today, and we can meet. We've got Austin and Todd here. We can create a meeting, get together and maybe see where we're at on this. What steps we have, and I can get input from these two. You guys can kick me emails of your main concerns, and we can address those and we'll get moving forward. We definitely want to work with you to get this job done. That's the key. It's been waiting way too long. And there's lives being spent on the highway, and we just want to make sure that we don't lose any in the process on the detour as well.
Detour is inevitable. We just need to absorb some of this and,
Sure.
discuss any further concerns.
Thank you. No, we appreciate that. And thank you for your time today.
Welcome. Thanks for coming over. Next up on the agenda, revised progress report for the 2017 county multi-jurisdictional hazards mitigation plan. Mr. Austin McWigan.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. I got into a debate with Nicole over how long this was going to take. And she insisted on 15 minutes. So I need to talk about that in order to fill in the additional time. on the
Don't feel
agenda.
compelled.
This is just really quick. And I know that the three of you are aware of the conversations that we've been having with Dean Bender about updating our multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. But I just conducted the annual review. This is the last year of the 2017 plan. We have one item left that was so we have, just to refresh your memory, we have 8 chronic hazards and 2 catastrophic hazards that we planned with mitigation strategies and tasks that we do in order to mitigate the risks associated with those and the cost associated with those. And there was one item left that needed to be completed in the plan. It's about 90% complete. It has to do with doing alternative route planning if in the event that we have an earthquake or other natural disaster that impacts our roads and bridges. Public Works has done that assessment. They have a written report on that assessment. They simply need to share it with the cities and with ODOT to get some additional feedback. And that didn't occur last year. There's probably a myriad of reasons of why it's difficult to get that done and sort of coming out of this pandemic. But I feel confident that work is finished and it's just a final coordination component. With that being said, we are at the point now where it's time to update our plan. We had an opportunity to work with a contractor and we started a scope of work process on that. And we determined that it really wasn't the best fit for our existing plan. Our existing plan, we've had this is the 3rd iteration of this plan and the formatting of the plan. And I think our preference is to stay with the formatting that we have now rather than switch the formatting again. It's easier to work with. It's easier to do continuous reporting. And it's easier to do analysis. And so Dean Bender has identified some funding We're working with the contractor that we worked with to prepare the 2017 plan. They're confident that in the spring, we would be able to start off on this project. There'd be a small gap from when the plan expires and when we would start work on updating the plan. A lot of that has to do just with timing with the contractor. Dean Bender has assured us and me specifically that if there's an issue where we need to go out for some pre-disaster grants or other things that our mitigation plan allows us to do, that there's an opportunity to be able to do that even with the expired plan. So we have a strategy in order to update that. And our cities had an opportunity to update their annexes that are part of this with the contractor that we were initially looking at having assist us in our plan update. And as far as I'm aware, that they're going to wait for the county in the county's final choice on contractor rather than doing something independent and individual from the county. That being said, that's all really that I have on the hazard mitigation plan update, and I'm open to any questions.
That was quick.
I can talk some more.
Appreciate your leadership on this, Austin. It's a lot of pieces to coordinate.
That's the right fit for your department.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody else doing this.
Has Dean Bender been like behind the scenes, manipulating, the view on who should be doing this plan?
It's praising where praise is due.
Yep. Austin, thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome.
Guys? Nope.
It's great.
Thank you.
Hearing body determination and appeal of land use decision 22-42, Sydney and Austin McQuiggins.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sydney Mulder, Planning Manager for the Community Development Department. And I'm here this morning for the board to determine a hearing body for an appeal that was submitted to our office last week on September 19th. So for some background information, the Community Development Department received a land use application proposing to construct a 73-foot tall communication tower within the exclusive farm use zoning district. On September 7th, the planning director approved this application with 14 conditions of approval. Notice was sent of the decision to surrounding area property owners, and a timely appeal was submitted, which identified concerns primarily related to potential impacts on an existing underground power line, terms of an existing easement agreement, costs associated with road maintenance, and potential impacts on a neighboring vineyard property. Polk County Zoning Ordinance 111.280 requires the board to set the matter for a public hearing and determines whether it should be before the hearings officer or the Polk County Board of Commissioners. So due to the technical nature of this application and the appeal, staff recommends the board set the hearing before the hearings officer.
And I so move to direct.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any non-listed items today? Hearing none, we're adjourned.